I just felt like when I was watching these videos of people hating on the stuff that were in this book, it just felt like Pharisee mentality. It felt like hush hush church culture. We don't talk about these type of topics. And if you don't know what the book is like about, the majority of the critics were like just talking about the sexual themes in general in the book and how it was just strong. It could, you know, sway a lot of people away, and they stop watching the film or stop reading the book. And, you know, I'm not here to tell anyone, you know, what you should and shouldn't do if you feel like something tempts you, because, you know, I'm in a different position. That stuff didn't tempt me. I read the book and I felt the complete opposite. But I guess my one word of like wisdom and advice for people that are saying things like that is, how are we as Christians living in such a perverse world going to learn about godly sex and sex in the way that it was created? Because sex in itself is not a bad thing, and that's what people are making it seem like. Anything sexual is just ringing alarm bells and just like Satan is like, you know, just trapping me. No, that's not true. Sex should be something that is openly talked about. And I say the word sex probably in about every single one of my videos. People are probably like, why does she talk about it so much? Because this world has so easily turned something good perverse. And I have been there where I have experienced it turn perverse. And I'm so passionate about it not being seen that way. You guys may have different opinions about the book or the movie. I didn't watch the movie. But the book, I did not see an issue with any of the like scenes in there. Like it never went into detail. It never explained things. Like the first time sex was in the book, I had to like look back and read it over and over again. I was like, did they have sex? Like, was it just like a really intimate moment, or like, did they actually have sex? And no, like as I read on, I was like, oh, they did have sex. Like that's how buried in it was. And even when you could tell they had sex, it was like, maybe it's just that I'm a hopeless romantic, and that when I see sex, I like, yes, obviously everyone thinks about like sex and like what biologically that entails, but like the way that it described it just made me like think, oh, this is just so beautiful. Like there's times that I read it and I cried, and like it was just like, wow, I feel like me 2 years ago really underestimated the power of godly sex and the beauty of it, because I was just so, you know, rushing into just having sex, not realizing that without God in the mix and without true selfless love, none of that means anything. And I just assumed that like people would have gotten the same from it, but no, people thought that it was too much. And the world is so in our face with sex. It's in every like perfume ad, every yogurt ad, every like chocolate ad, car ad, you know, it is in music videos, it's in movies, it's on billboards, it's on YouTube ads. It's every single thing we see has sex, because sex sells. So there's no way you can hide from it. And I know that people want to rush straight to like, oh, but porn. And it's like, yeah, porn exists, but you literally basically see porn when you're watching a music video, and you can't hide from that stuff. But yet as soon as we become Christian, it's like, oh no, we don't talk about that. But your eyes have already been opened to it already. If your eyes have already been opened up to that, and you all of a sudden think that when you become a Christian, when you give your life to Christ, you just shut it and like that's it, no, baby girl, it doesn't work like that. I remember reading Sex in the Broken World by Paul David Tripp, it's over there, and he was talking about how you cannot just switch off from your sexuality when you come to Christ, because not only will that, it just doesn't help you to see the beautiful thing that God has created, it will actually also turn everything 10 times more lustful. You can't just go into marriage and not ever think about sex for like the last 5 years since you've been Christian, and just think, yeah, like it's gonna be fine. But you don't actually think, oh, I'm gonna be able to have sex the way God wants. I'm just gonna be able to have sex, because you've never actually taught yourself or allowed God to teach you what true like godly sex is, if that makes sense. So you're just like gearing up, ready to go, like, oh my gosh, like this girl is so beautiful, like as soon as we get married I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna have sex with her like I would do all of the girls that I've had sex in my past, or I'm gonna have sex with her like fantasizing about all the porn stars I've seen. You're not gonna have a godly perspective. So when it comes to this book and people who are criticizing it, I think, how are we as Christians, especially 21st century Christians below the age of 30, and we've had technology just shoved in our face from day one, like it almost feels irresponsible to just say that shouldn't be a topic discussed, and if it is, we shouldn't have real life examples to base it off of. And I think that's what people don't like, because we can talk about sex and we can say, we wait till marriage and blah blah blah, but we're not gonna read a book about a girl that was a prostitute and then learns how to have sex and love sex in the confines of marriage and in the love of God and with a man that truly cares about her. That's when it's pushing the boat too far, because that's when we put a bit more detail than we would in a video or in a Bible study telling our kids don't have sex. Kids, teenagers, adults, every single person who's not married or even is married need to know a real life experience. Why do you think the Bible is full of stories? Why do you think Song of Songs exists? And that is the one thing that I thought about when everyone was just having a go. I'm like, right, okay, you definitely skipped that book in the Bible. And I'm not saying, that those things might not, like reading it might not make you think about sex, because it's talking about sex, but the whole point of it, in my opinion, is to challenge you to get yourself out of that mindset of seeing sex as this perverse thing, but seeing it how God created it. No change is comfortable. Talking about sex is weird. When I first started talking about sex, or even thinking about sex in a Christian way, it was like, oh, this is uncomfortable. But yet when I was around my friends, non-Christian, I'd be talking about what this boy did to me, what I did to him, and blah, 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 blah. If that's so easy when you're in the world, why do we make it difficult when we come to Christ? Like, for me, when you really read the book and you really dwell on what sex actually is, the gospel just hits different. Like, everything that is created by God is supposed to push the narrative of the gospel even further. And if this part of the gospel makes you feel uncomfortable, then that is not a Francine Rivers problem. That is not a me problem. When I make this podcast, I talk about sex openly. That is a you problem. That is the devil in you problem. But I guess I want to end it off in a really nice, a nice way that's not criticizing. Just an ask for people to be more sensitive to what other people need. I needed to read that because I needed to remind myself, and not even remind myself, show myself, because I'd never even had that revelation, that I can go into my marriage bed and feel brand new. I always thought I would feel in awe of the fact that God had even brought me to this point because of everything that has happened to me, and I still will feel like that. But I always felt like I would go into the marriage bed feeling just a slight bit unfulfilled, because I know that hasn't been my first time. And of course, me and my boyfriend talk a lot about how we both wish that we were each other's first time, but I never want it to get in the way of me just feeling free in the marriage bed and knowing that I am fully set free from everything that's happened in my past, and I can see it as a new chapter. I can see myself as a new body. I don't look at my body and see it as dirty. I want to see it as pure. I want to see it as God's before I see it as my husband's. And that's when I get so passionate about this book, because if you can't understand what that feels like to feel dirty, to feel ashamed with yourself, to look in the mirror, not even be able to look in the mirror because all you can think about is how your body has been abused and used by people that you don't even talk to anymore. That makes me so passionate and so upset when people just assume that they know what's good for us or know what we should listen to or read. Because I know that this woman who wrote this book is a true believer who truly believes in the love of God, but she also, because of that, believes in teaching women about where God is taking them and who God proclaims them to be, redeemed. That word is so powerful. That word is so strong. Whenever I even read it, like sends chills through my spine, because like I fully still cannot grasp the fact that that is me, despite everything that I've done. So for everyone that, you know, has different opinions about it, please just, you know, just try and think about being in someone else's shoes, you know. And to the person that has been in a similar place to me, I would always think that, you know, God has saved me. I don't think I can ask for any more, because he saved me from hell. He saved me from actually doing the physical things of sex before marriage, promiscuity, like insecurities in the sense of like trying to like idolize a man. Like, I'm not saying that I'm never insecure, but I've like completely gotten over this desire to feel validated from a guy. That's gone. But I still struggle with like the moving on that I did do that, and like it makes me feel really uncomfortable. I so desperately want people to be able to understand that God saving you from that does not mean that his salvation stops there. God breaks every single chain. There is not one thing that God is, you know, that's not to do with me. I'm out on this one, you know, like God isn't like that. God's salvation and redemption runs deeper than anything that we can ever grasp. And I want you to know that God is not finished with you yet. There is so much more that God has in store for you. There is so much more that God wants to do in your life, reveal to you, show you about who you are. Like the affirmations and the declarations that God places over your life are like living, because God is living. Everything that he says, everything that he's written in the Bible is living. It does not die. It does not become stagnant. Like, he will continue to give you fresh revelations over and over again if you let him. And that surrender is just such a vital thing. And if you can just open your heart up to say, God, it is you and only you that can break me free from this.